Welcome to the Mystery Meat Show. Today we're going to have Jared Taylor walk us through why multiculturalism is such a bad, horrible, failed experiment, and how some of these European countries are actually doing some good stuff. So, man himself.
Days ago, the major Danish newspaper BT wrote an editorial about immigrants. They should not be integrated. They should go home.
Agreed. 100%. 100%.
The paper pointed out that Danes are on course to become a minority in their own country by 2096. It added, it is simply not acceptable. That is why remigration is necessary. Send the foreigner.
Also, white people aren't having a lot of children. Birth rates have collapsed. Population by white people has collapsed. That's why they're importing immigrants. We simply don't have enough people.
Home. Danes can disagree on other policies, it said, but everyone must agree that Denmark is for the Danes. What could be more obvious? The remigration movement is growing.
Genius.
Here are Spaniards marching for remigration. Italians are calling for remigration.
Buona.
The Dutch activist Eva Vlandingerbroek promoted remigration at this year's CPAC Hungary. Even in the most beaten-down country in the world, Germany,
I didn't see that coming.
For remigration. Europeans need homelands. I've spent 35 years saying the same thing about the United States. We need a homeland. When Donald Trump was elected in 2016, I thought that in an offhand remark to reporters, he might, just might, say, what's wrong with white people wanting to be the majority in the United States? I no longer think he has it in him. In this year's inaugural address, he mentioned...
And why is that so bad, by the way? Why can't white people be a majority in our country? We don't have to allow people into our country. We don't have to allow immigrants into our country. It's a privilege to be here. So I don't understand why it's so controversial.
Support from African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans. He went on to say, to the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you. Mr. Trump got 80% of his 77 million votes from white people, but he didn't mention us once. I don't think a guy who is 79 years old and still doesn't understand race ever will. There are more than 519,000 elected officials in the United States.
Wow.
I don't know of a single one who says what that Danish newspaper said about Danes, that we need a place where we are the majority.
Could you imagine the backlash you'd receive for saying something like that? I mean, I don't even know what practices you could employ to even make that effective. But how about just saying, hey, you know what? For the next 10 years, just no immigrants. You know, I think we've had enough. Come on, white people, start having... It's our problem, too. We're not having enough babies.
And yet, every year, millions more people come to understand what's necessary for our survival. Why do we have no political representation? Not even on a city council or a school board. In 1989, before a lot of you were even born, David Duke won a seat in the Louisiana State House. He ran as a Republican and won despite denunciations from then President George H.W. Bush and former President Ronald Reagan. Mr. Duke was the most famous racist in America. He even wore a swastika armband as a student at Louisiana State University. But he had a well-packaged, pro-white message that got through to the people of Metairie, Louisiana, Republican, Democrat, and Independent. You couldn't have had more awkward baggage than David Duke, but he won. I remember reading the news in...
that's obviously deplorable, the KKK and white supremacy and shit. But there's literally not a single... I mean, he's right. What politician is looking out for white people? We're literally... White people, white males, or the white Christian Catholic, a white Christian Catholic or straight male That's the most hated person in America because you have all the privilege, you have all the power somehow.
In the New York Times and thinking, this is the big breakthrough. The floodgates have opened. Boy, was I wrong. There's hardly been a trickle. In the 1990s, white advocate Frank Borzilleri was elected several times to the school board in Queens, New York, of all places. He made headlines by denouncing anti-white propaganda, calling the NAACP a liberal freak organization, and saying it was
Probably pretty
outrageous
true.
to canonize a plagiarist, embezzler, and adulterer named Martin Luther King.
Ooh, I did hear Martin Luther King was quite the raunchy savage. Plagiarized a lot of his shit. I heard he was like beating up women and stuff. But I mean, that's just character assassination. I thought he did some pretty cool shit.
He spoke at several.
Every street in the inner city, all throughout America, that's like the most dangerous street in the city.
American Renaissance conferences and became the most famous school board member in the whole country. Mr. Borzilleri was knocked off the board only because New York City Public Schools reorganized into a single citywide school board. In 1997, Mr. Borzilleri ran for city council in a hard-fought race that he lost after being outspent 7-1. Yes, it's tough battling the machine. But if you can get that far in New York City, think how far you could go in Tennessee, Arkansas, Nebraska, Utah, plenty of places. Why do we still have no voice? Despite Donald Trump, despite the alt-right, despite the pro-white organizations and personalities that appear all the time. I think there are two reasons. One is the idea that the system is so rotten that electoral politics can change nothing. The other is the idea that there has to be complete collapse, and then white consciousness will grow out of the ruins. Wrong on both counts. Electing Donald Trump rather than Kamala Harris wasn't a permanent cure, but it made a huge difference. We don't even know how many tens of millions of illegals Joe Biden let in.
I mean, that is true. I mean, Donald Trump, in my opinion, he has not run that great of a campaign. He gets a lot of credit for the immigration stuff, but that's just enforcing the law. Like, that's not a hard fix. He's kicking ass with the immigration shit. But everything else, the bill, he's getting really squirrely in Iran and Iraq and stuff. I'm like, that bill is kind of a piss off too. But I mean, the cultural values that he espouses are something that's one of the reasons why you vote for him, is because he's so American for Americans. These fucking Democrats, senators, and House of Congress men and women are flying down for foreigners. They're going to rescue illegal immigrants. You've never seen a Democrat work so hard, but for an illegal immigrant. They would never do that for their own for their own constituents. Of course not.
But immigration is now so low, some people think this year could be the first net outflow in decades. Obviously, the presidential election is the most important.
That would be insane. If more people... Did I hear that right?
Immigration is now so low, some people think this year could be the first net outflow in decades.
Whoa. So, more people leaving than coming in. I don't know how they would... That's kind of
Obviously,
difficult to...
the presidential election is the most important one. But imagine the tremendous impact of 100 David Dukes or Frank Borzilleris. As for collapse, it might never come. And even if it did, there's no guarantee it would do any good. Greece's debt crisis lasted a decade. Argentina had 54% inflation in 2019. And in 2020, it had its 9th debt default. GDP shrank 10%. And the poverty rate in a country whiter than the United States was 41%. There was no miraculous blossoming of white consciousness in either country. I think too many people are looking for excuses to do nothing. Yes, running for office is very hard work, unlike complaining on X. But for anything to change, white people will have to work very, very hard. It takes power to change things, and power comes from politics. Everywhere I go, I meet smart, committed young people. Some of them will run for office. They'll do it in the right places, with the right message. And when they do, campaign money will pour in from all over the country. And when they win,
Doubtful.
the media will squeal.
The media would have an absolute frenzy if a white nationalist was elected. I mean, just being a white nationalist doesn't make you racist. It's just you want to see more white people in the country. There's nothing wrong with that.
Begin to change. I don't often paraphrase Karl Marx, but I will today. White people of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains.
Jared Taylor. Wow. Like and subscribe.